What's going on, everyone, and welcome into my first ever 2022 mock draft. And sorry for not posting lately. I've been busy with a bunch of stuff, but there will be a lot of content coming soon. And, let's just get straight into it. I'm going to start posting these every 2 weeks or so just because the draft's coming up. I'm really invested in the draft process, along with a couple other videos about, my rankings of certain prospects in the draft and that kind of stuff. Moving on. First overall pick, the Lions. I think it's pretty easily Kayvon Thibodeaux right now. There's no quarterback that deserves to go number one overall, and there's no quarterback right now that I think will. They have Matt Corral at number 20, and that's the first quarterback that they have ranked there. This is a really weak quarterback class, probably the worst quarterback class since 2013, or even like 2015. It's a really bad quarterback class, but I just think Kayvon Thibodeaux, he's a great player. Lions need him. Moving on to the number 2 overall pick, which the Jets have in this simulator, I think it's pretty easily Derek Stingley. He has kind of had a down year, been dealing with some issues like injury-wise, but he's still an amazing prospect. Best corner prospect since Jalen Ramsey, I think. Easily a top 2 player in this class. Jets need corner, they go with it there. I think that's a great pick overall. Jaguars is tough right here, because I could see them going both Evan Neal or Kyle Hamilton, or even Aidan Hutchinson. I think it's going to be Evan Neal, though. Jawan Taylor hasn't really worked out so far. Cam Robinson, he's on the franchise tag. They do have Walker Little, but he could move to guard. Jawan Taylor could move to guard. They have a lot of options there. Get your franchise left tackle to protect Trevor and make him the best quarterback possible. There's no receiver worth taking here. I think they need to build around Trevor first before building on that defense. So Evan Neal right there, a good pick. Texans right here. I'm not going to take an edge just because Jonathan Greenard, I think his name is, been performing amazing this season, 3rd round pick last year. I think I'm going to take Kyle Hamilton just because, he's a generational safety talent. I think he's probably my number 1 or number 2 player in the class. Not value-wise, but just pure player-wise, he's an amazing player. And Texans need safety. They need basically every position on offense and defense besides maybe like left tackle with Laramie Tunsil, and even then he's been banged up. But moving on to the number 5 overall pick, I don't think the Jets will be picking at number 5 in real life. Probably still picking top 15 because the Seahawks haven't been great this year, but definitely not this high. If they do pick this high, however, I think it's Aidan Hutchinson. And I think it's Aidan Hutchinson just because he's an amazing player, and he's kind of like on the level of Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's just a step below him. He could go number 1 overall. Like if Kayvon Thibodeaux was not in this class, Aidan Hutchinson would be the number 1 overall pick, I think. Amazing value there, really top 5 player in the class. And, Jets are building a really good defense with Aidan Hutchinson and Derek Stingley. Moving on to the number 6 overall pick, I think it has to be Marvin Lial here. I mean, he's had, kind of a down year this year. Not really what people expected him to be, but he's still a top 8 player in this class. And, they need edge rusher. They could put him in, as a 3-4 defensive end, I think could work well. And then maybe select someone like an outside linebacker in the second round. Really deep edge class. But DeMarvin Leal, that's a great pick there. For their second pick, they have 2 picks in a row. I think they should go Ikem Ekwonu. He's a top 10 player in the class. Not sure why he's not listed as a top 10 player in the class there. Great tackle, probably the second best tackle in this class. They need offensive line, get Daniel Jones help. I don't think they take a quarterback this year, even though Daniel Jones has been performing bad. Wait until his rookie contract's over. If you want to extend his 5th-year option this year, then do it. If you don't want to, then don't do it. But I think they should just build around him first. Get him a franchise left tackle, or a franchise right tackle rather, because Andrew Thomas has actually been performing well at left tackle. But build around Daniel Jones. I think that needs enough said. Number 8 for the Eagles. I don't think it will be a quarterback. Jalen Hurts, I think, is a top 15 quarterback. He's the franchise guy, in my opinion, for the Eagles. I think that this is going to be a corner. My number 2 graded corner behind Derek Stingley right now is Ahmad Gardner. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think they need corner. Darius Slay, been great this season, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but he's old. And Steven Nelson not going to get re-signed. Avonte Maddox, he's a slot. They have a really big hole at corner too, and even corner 1 within the next year or 2 when Darius Slay retires eventually. So Ahmad Gardner there, I think it's a great pick. They have a pick at 11 and 16 as well. Moving on here, number 9, the Falcons. They could take a quarterback. I just don't see it, man. Jordan Davis, perfect pick there. He's a hometown kid from Georgia. Athens is not right next to Atlanta, but fairly close in the same state. and they need pass rushers. I think Jordan Davis would be an amazing addition to that defensive line. He's actually a Heisman candidate right now, believe it or not, even though he's a defensive player. Safety, I almost said safety. Washington here, going to take a quarterback. Matt Corral, I think it's a lot of people are going to yell at me, like, oh, you didn't take a quarterback that high. Quarterbacks go high. There's not really any teams here besides Atlanta that I can see taking a quarterback that high. And Washington, I think they need a franchise quarterback. They could get Matt Corral. I think Malik Willis is better, but I just don't think they take him over Matt Corral. Number 11 here, Eagles. They need offensive line. People don't realize this, but, Jack Driscoll isn't the best. Lane Johnson's old. Jason Kelsey's old. Brandon Brooks retiring. That whole right side of the offensive line is really old, and they could use a guy like Kenyon Green, I think. He's a really good, versatile player. He can play both interior, even tackle if they wanted him to. I think at 11, that's a great pick there. They could go edge rusher here, but as I said before, this is a really deep edge class, so I think they just go with Kenyon Green there. Moving on to number 12 with the Panthers. I think this is Charles Cross. They could take a quarterback, but Cam has been performing pretty well, and I think if they take a quarterback, then they trade up into the late first round or the second round and get a quarterback there. They need a left tackle. They have a huge hole at left tackle and on the offensive line as a whole. Their offensive line isn't great. Get a good offensive line. Cam Newton's been performing well. He could be your quarterback for the next couple of years. You could wait because this is a weak quarterback class. 13 Broncos, going to be a quarterback. I think Malik Willis pretty easily there. He's my number 1 rated quarterback. Him and Matt Corral right next to each other. TDN is really high on Sam Howell. I am not high on Sam Howell at all. I think Kenny Pickett, Carson Strong, even debatably Desmond Ridder is better than him. Moving on to number 14, though, where the Dolphins, I'm going to have them selecting Tyler Linderbaum just because he's a generational center talent. I think he will come into the NFL day one and be a top 3 center in the league. And I'm not joking about that either. He's an amazing player. Center, not the most valuable position in the NFL, but Dolphins just need whatever they can get on the offensive line. And this is a guy that, has basically no chance of busting. But I really think he has no chance of failing in the NFL. You really don't know that with the other guys that tackle an interior O-line. And, I wouldn't take Nicholas Petit-Frere or Trevor Penning this high. So Linderbaum just really makes a lot of sense there. Moving on to number 15 for the Raiders. I've been debating this pick a lot. I think it just makes too much sense, man. Christian Harris here at 15. I don't think he's this high of a player. I think he is a second-round player. But this is such a Raiders pick right here. Alabama guy, they select Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State guys that are second-round talents in the mid to late first round for some reason. They really like doing that. And Christian Harris, I don't know, it just feels perfect for what the Raiders do every draft. Moving on to number 16, Philadelphia Eagles. This has to be an edge rusher here. I really don't think that, Derek Barnett re-signs with them. Josh Sweat, he's not really that amazing of a player. Brandon Graham is old. They need an edge rusher. Karlaftis, I think he's a kind of do-it-all player, maybe a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of guy. He's really good at, rushing and run-stopping, and he can basically be a plug-and-play guy and come in day one and be a really good player on this D-line. And they could also, end up going with someone in the second or third round. There are guys like Nick Bonito and even, not David Ajabo anymore, but Nick Bonito and Jermaine Johnson that could fall just because of how good this edge class is. And they could take those guys in the third round and have them play opposite of George Karlaftis even. But I do think they take George Karlaftis there. He's an amazing player. Browns at number 17. It's going to be a receiver. Chris Olave, I think, is the best receiver in this draft. And he's a local guy, Ohio State, staying in Ohio, rather. I know I like picking these local guys, but a lot of the time it really makes sense for what the teams need. And I'm going to do it again here. Steelers, they need a quarterback. Kenny Pickett right now is my number 3 graded quarterback in the class. I think he's a great quarterback. Maybe not as high of upside as Carson Strong, but I think he's a guy that can come in there day one and be, the most pro-ready guy out of any of these guys, maybe. Malik Willis, I think, is very pro-ready, a lot more pro-ready than people are saying that he is. But I think Kenny Pickett might be the most pro-ready quarterback in this class. Moving on to number 19, another receiver I think it's going to be for the Saints. Garrett Wilson, second best receiver in the draft in my opinion. Still good, don't get me wrong. Him and Chris Olave are almost the same type of prospect. Not same type of prospect, but on the same level. And I think it would be a great pick. The Saints need receiver. Michael Thomas, we don't know when he's going to come back. It's going to be next season. But, does he get traded? Does he come back and play terrible? Saints have a big hole at receiver. They need that right there. Moving on to the Vikings, they need a corner really bad. And I think a lot of people don't realize how bad their cornerback situation is. But there are two guys that have fallen so far. I'm going to pick Elam here. I think when healthy, he's probably a top 10, top 15 player in this class. Getting him at 20 is just a steal for the Vikings. And they're going to have a guy that can basically be their corner one from the start. Elam is probably going to walk in and be the best corner on the Vikings day one. Moving on to the Bills, going to be interior O-line. I think Darian Kinnard is a perfect pick here. Their interior O-line is so bad, man. You know, their tackles are fine, Dion Dawkins and then Spencer Brown. He's been performing pretty well in the time that he's gotten, but they need interior O-line. They need running back as well. But Darian Kinnard, perfect pick there. About where I think he'll go in the draft. Moving on, this front seven for the Chargers, terrible. They need defensive line a lot. They need linebacker a decent amount. I'm taking David Ojabo. I think he's an amazing player. You know, in any other draft class, I think in last draft class, David Ojabo probably would have been my number one edge in the class. This is a really, really deep edge class, and he's an amazing player. They're going to get a guy that can make an impact on their front seven and make it a lot better. That's been their really big hole this season. Moving on, number 23, Bengals. I think it has to be Nicholas Petit-Frere. They need a tackle. He's another guy that's going to stay in state and be the future tackle of the Bengals, maybe. We don't know. Bucks. This is a tough one, man, because the Bucks, you know, they have a lot of needs, like interior D-line, sure, but there's not a lot of guys I could see going here. Edge rusher, they have a lot of older players. I think it's going to be Andrew Booth. If he falls to number 24, I think the Bucks take him. He's a top 15 player in the class, probably the number 3 or 4 corner in the class. This is a pretty good corner class overall, especially in the early rounds. But Andrew Booth Jr., 24 to the Bucks. They have had corner problems this year. Carlton Davis going to be a free agent, so, you know, maybe you get a guy that can be right next to Jamel Dean, be the cornerback 1, cornerback 2. Sean Murphy-Bunting can play in the slot. I think right here for the Chiefs at 25, it's going to be Trayvon Walker. He is flying up draft boards. Amazing player at Georgia right now. Along with David Ojabo, they're both flying up draft boards. And the Chiefs need a guy that can pass rush on the edge. They have Chris Jones, but he's not really an edge rusher. He's more of an interior guy. So Trayvon Walker there, great pick for them. Number 26 for the Patriots is going to be Treylon Burks. I'm not going to say anything more. I've been mocking that all offseason. They need a receiver. Pretty self-explanatory. Moving on, another one I've been mocking all offseason, Daxton Hill to the Lions. I almost said Vikings. The Lions, local guy, you know, Ann Arbor, only like 45 minutes away. He played cornerback in high school, I believe, so he can switch around corner, safety, whatever they need. Their defense is really bad. Their whole team is bad as a whole. 28, this could be an edge. I don't know any edges that the Cowboys would take here. Once again, a deep edge class. Good players fall. They need safety as well. I think they take Jordan Battle there at 28. I originally had them going edge in the first round and then Jalen Catalon in the second. But Jordan Battle, an amazing player. You know, DeMonte Casey, not good. Who else do they have at free safety? They have like Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson. It's really, really bad. A really bad safety group. They need help at safety. So 28, Jordan Battle, great pick there. Number 29 for the Ravens is a little bit tough. They have a lot of needs. I think, honestly, you know what? I'm going to do it. Trent McDuffie. They have had, you know, Marcus Peters getting older. He just tore his ACL last season. Marlon Humphrey been playing terrible this season. And Trent McDuffie can start in the slot day one. So they can put him wherever they want, slot, outside. You know, this cornerback room was one of the big strengths last year of the Ravens, and it's become one of their big weaknesses. So getting a corner in the first round would be great for them. Packers here, another tough one. I think I'm going to go receiver. I'm going to go Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, I think, is an amazing player. He's my number one receiver in the class right now. I said that about Chris Olave earlier. I meant that he's the consensus number one for most people right now. But Jahan Dotson is my number one receiver in the class. I think he does everything at an insane level and is super underrated. Not really, I can say a lot about him. I could make a whole video on him. I might even do that. Moving on to the Titans, 31. Quarterback or linebacker, Ryan Tannehill has been bad this season. I don't think people realize how he has not, maybe he's not been terrible, but he has not been good. And he's like 33 or 34 years old. So I could honestly see them taking a quarterback here. And I think it would be interesting to mix things up a little bit. You know, they do need a guy like Devin Lloyd. He could be good right there. You know what? I'm doing it. Carson Strong, 31 to the Titans. I think they have a potential out on Ryan Tannehill, so what they could do is basically have him play part of the year along with Carson Strong next year, or just have Carson Strong sit the year, and then they can cut him and not have to have as much, cap penalty. So Carson Strong there at number 31. I think the Titans will be picking earlier than that, but I do think at this point they take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds because Tannehill's just having a huge down year. Cardinals here, I don't like them taking a corner. I think that Marco Wilson is really good, and, they should give him a chance. He's a really good prospect as, like, a raw prospect overall. I think it's going to be an edge rusher, and this is kind of tough. Yeah, I would say that it would be Drake Jackson. I like Myjai Sanders, but I just think that Drake Jackson's a great overall player. So that's it. That's my first round mock draft. The first one I'm doing. I'm going to be doing one in probably another week or two and talking about my draft risers. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, comment, do all that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.